You're listening to the ASOTU CON Sessions by Effective, recorded live in Philly.
All right, this is Kyle Mountsier. I've got Paul J. Daly here with me. We are on ASOTU CON Sessions by Effective, and we've got our new friend, Jim McKelvey. Jim, thanks for joining us.
Happy to be here. This is going to be fun.
Yeah, absolutely. So we're just going to jam for just a minute. Jim was so gracious to come in and be a part of ASOTU CON, and it's really fun when you've got a new friend, and the minute they walk in, they throw on the shirt. They're like, I'm in. Yep. I'm loving people more than you love cars.
Yeah. And I came in a suit because I have a dinner that I've got to go to where I can only wear a suit tonight. So I got to throw the suit on right before I leave. But I figured I'd wear a T-shirt because otherwise nobody takes me seriously.
Yeah, it's funny how that juxtaposes depending on who you're with.
If I show up in a suit, it's like, did you get subpoenaed?
You're like,
yes,
yeah, it's a suit guy. It's a suit guy. So let's ask you this because you're a little familiar with the automotive industry, but we just kind of threw you in with 500 of our closest friends who like to make trouble in automotive and who are really working to change the perception and the culture of retail auto dealers. What has been your perception of the crowd, the vibe, just as a really outsider to this community?
So I've been approached by more people who have read my book and have thought about the issues that I've been raising for the last few years at this concert than any other one.
Really?
Yeah. Wow. So this is now, the book kind of came out in the pandemic, and this is like the second conference I think I've been to since then. But it's
one of two.
It's been fantastic, just the level of engagement and level of thought. These people have been in a fairly traditional business for decades, and to hear them thinking about new ways to do things and new ways to ask questions, and I thought it was pretty interesting. Yeah,
I didn't see that coming.
Yeah,
I mean, I'm actually not surprised.
We may or may not have bribed half of it. No, I'm just
It could be that there's alcohol everywhere.
Yeah,
like this.
No, yeah. So we started talking about it because we were like, hey, look, if we're gonna have a conference and we're gonna put up something at the center, then we want to make sure that the conversation and that the lead up. So I think a lot of people have read the book, and a lot of people know you from your work at Square, now Block, and kind of that growth of this innovation stack that you built. But what I'd love to hear is you've got a couple new ventures going on. One mainly with Invisibly, and because you wrote the innovation stack, and if someone hasn't read it, definitely should. But you wrote that mainly out of your experience of Square. But where are you seeing some of those similar themes right now as you're building what you're building, and you're going, hey, I've experienced something similar, not altogether the same, but I've experienced something similar, and I'm able to import some of the learnings that I've had?
I think the biggest learning is I'm less likely to quit. So when we were going through Square, look, it took us 1.5 years to get our product out. It took us 3 weeks to build it, but it was 1.5 years before it actually worked legally and we could release it.
Yeah.
And there were a lot of people during that time who said it couldn't be done and told us to give up. And Jack and I kept going. But I've heard a lot of stories, and I've also lived through situations where you get halfway through what might be just a major breakthrough, and you quit because you're getting you don't get any positive feedback until the whole thing works.
End, right? You don't know how close you are either.
Yeah,
like halfway through, you could be 98% through.
Yeah, and if you're a computer scientist, you're sort of aware of the fact that like one bad line of code and the other 10,000 don't work.
Doesn't work, right?
But it's very frustrating, and so I think the big lesson that I got out of sort of writing the book was this respect for how difficult the process is, and so I think I'm a little more stubborn, maybe.
Yeah, that's good.
Well, talk about what the product does. What is Invisibly?
Well, it's this product for people to control their attention. So now
that sounds like marketing.
Yeah, it is. But if you think about the way you get content in the world. Okay, there are only two models right now. You either subscribe, or you pay or you do it through ads.
Yep.
Okay, so that's how you get the stuff that you put in your brain. There's a third model that has never worked in the content world, which is pay-per-view. Nobody's figured out a way to allow you to get an article that's a pay-per-view. And
right, like if you see, you're saying like you see the Wall Street Journal and you want to see the article and you've used up all your free tries,
right.
You can only subscribe.
Right.
You can't say like, hey, I'll pay 50 cents to read this article.
That is correct.
Got it.
And
wow.
Check.
He's
take
like,
it.
So remember the Southwest illustration.
Yes.
I found another one.
Right. I would be willing to pay 25 cents to read an article, but not $7.99 for all the articles.
Right. Yeah, and you know, if you think about the way journalism is supported, like you want to pay more for good stuff. And this is the whole thing.
Yeah.
Like we want to live in a world, like I want to live in a world where there's expensive stuff and cheap stuff. And sometimes I can do the cheap stuff and sometimes I can do the expensive stuff. But I don't want to live in a world where everything is as cheap as possible. And right now the model that dictates content is make it as cheap as possible, because if it costs more, you can't earn more. So the advertising model is you're basically monetizing per minute of engagement. Which is to say, if I can trick you into watching something for 2 minutes as opposed to 1 minute, I get more money. And the way to think about that is, why are some of the articles you read and some of the content you see so long-winded and stupid?
Right. It's like disgusting. How am I 3 scrolls down and you've said the same thing 12 times?
I still don't know even what you're saying, actually.
Right?
Yeah.
And then you get to the bottom and you're like, it's not even, there's no punchline. It's the most unsatisfying thing ever.
And that used to not be the case, because it used to be expensive to deliver the content, because you had a printed page or you had a broadcast signal.
Right, so you had to get
every
to it.
word meant
it was the
something.
opposite.
Yes.
Exactly.
Right, there was a real estate issue.
Yeah.
I only have so much, so I better make great use of it.
Fit it in. Now it's like, hey, well, how's it going, guy?
Throw a blog up.
I once
Point
thought
to the
about
blog
this.
about the blog. Right?
Yeah, and like try looking up a recipe sometime.
Oh gosh, don't get
come
me
on.
started on Pinterest now.
It's insane.
I don't care about the life story of that farm in South Dakota.
Yeah, like, you know, I understand your grandmother was an important person to you, but I'm trying to bake a pie.
Right.
You know? That's
Just how do I get the flaky crust?
yeah. Where's the butter?
I'd pay 50 cents for that right now.
Right. So so anyway, Invisibly is my new effort. I should say new. It's not. It's been around for 5 years. We have been getting it wrong for 5 years. So
wow.
So we've
That's encouraging.
Thank you so much.
Thank you. Well, encouraging for you. I mean,
you're like,
It's
but
easy
this
for
mic
us.
is going through a window.
Thank you so much for your
We have blown
encouragement.
through almost $30 million over 5 years with teams of people and ideas that almost worked.
I
and
see
then
why you're
finally
discouraged.
But it's starting to go. And like I have a product right now that I'm actually pretty happy to use. In the magical 2 weeks from now, we will release a product that I'm really psyched about. The Wall Street Journal just signed up last week.
Wow.
Like, literally the Wall
Kyle,
Street
now
Journal.
you can read the Wall
So I
Street
can read
Journal.
it now. Yeah.
I don't have to be a savvy businessman.
See, but I had this feeling of exclusivity because I'm a subscriber to the Wall Street Journal.
So am I.
I went into the store in the airport and they didn't make a big deal of it. Like, I'm a subscriber, you know.
Well, the journal's terrible because I constantly get people emailing me articles. And I'm a subscriber, and I can't open them a lot of times.
Right, you're still like, oh, I'm logged in on another browser or like the private thing.
Or I have to do this, you know. Oh, so yeah, I'm really excited.
So
to see
2
where it's
weeks,
going.
you have a product that is going to be available where?
So
how do you consume this product?
So you go to Invisibly.com. It's an app, and it will basically take news feeds from your local news sources and national news sources, and now the Journal, and it'll try to pull those together in a way that suits you. So the other thing that's weird about content is that people who get their content from platforms are actually being fed like cattle are fed in a feedlot. Right?
That feels right.
You are basically being shown the article that is in the best interest of the platform. So if it's in this to we need to piss Kyle off right now,
right?
Because he's about to leave, and we know that pissing him off is going to get him to engage more. Like, now's the time to show him that.
Give it to him.
Yeah,
right.
We've got this,
and we know he doesn't like this. Let's give him.
So that's healthy for the platform because it ups your engagement. It's not necessarily healthy for you. So the other thing that we're giving people, which I don't know if anyone's ever going to appreciate, is just neutral discovery, which is like, okay, here are the things we think you like. You tell us if we're wrong or tell us how we're wrong.
Wait, you said neutral discovery?
Yeah. In other words,
here's some new things.
Here's
what's it informed by?
Yeah. So initially, we're gonna do the regular popularity contest. Here are the most popular articles right now.
Yep.
But then as you start to choose and engage with articles, and we start to get a sense of what you like, then we will skew our article recommendations towards what you like. But then we give you this huge control panel with hundreds of variables where you say, oh, look, I'm interested in these things and not these things, and all this stuff.
Yeah.
And look, this is a big experiment. Nobody's ever done this before. Like, we were looking. I'm going to say this on stage in an hour. Like, we really wished we could have copied somebody.
Yeah.
But you couldn't.
But there was nobody out there doing this.
So we had to.
So we had to.
Yeah. See, there it is. Well, look, you're a troublemaker after our own hearts. We're going to tell the story this afternoon of why you're even here at this conference, because it's a big part of what we're doing, because we know that there's this moment that automotive specifically is in this so we had to moment, and I don't think we expected it to come as an industry where it's like, where there are things where nobody else has done before, and we can't even copy the new entrants into our space. The only way around that is figuring out a new way. There's a new path that has to be carved. Yeah. Now, it's going to be as an industry, so there are people that will do it differently. But I guess just one more question, and we'll just pivot it to auto just real quick. Yeah. Is just like when you look at auto dealers specifically in the realm of what of the financial world and automotive, where would you see auto dealers making at least a step or a move toward reconciling a new audience or finding a new audience or contributing to the retail environment in a new way?
So auto dealers, I don't think you can lump them together too much, because
that's so good.
I bought cars from like the guys with the colored flags.
Yeah.
Okay. And then I bought cars from our premier dealers. And and in between, I've done the deal in the back of guy's yard, right? So I think there's an evolution that's happening in about 5 or 6 different variables in the auto world, and you just got so much change coming at them at once. My question is, 5 years from now, when I'm a consumer and I have a car, what's that car going to look like? What am I going to need? What sort of relationships am I going to have? And I keep thinking about all these, examples throughout my life. Like my uncle never bought a car; he would only lease. And I was like, Uncle Bob, why don't you buy a car? It's like cheaper to buy the car. He's like, I don't want to deal with buying the car. Like he was so repulsed by the experience of it
was simpler
buying.
To lease a car.
Yeah, but he could simply lease it. Yeah, so he was leasing it. And so I think, as far as the dealers are concerned, there's a tremendous amount of opportunity down because there's sort of a low trust factor in the industry as a whole. Mm-hmm. Like if you had dealerships or organizations or sort of signals that you were trustworthy, I think that's going to go a long, long way.
So just kind of those are the good ones. Like if someone was able to point that out in a way, you could the consumers would move to that.
And this is why you see brands like like Koons around DC where I used to live. I had a girlfriend that used to sell Chevys for Koons. Right?
Oh wow! Yeah.
And I was I'd go to the dealership and hang out, watch her like sort of talk some guy in a Camaro that he probably shouldn't have been driving, but that was how it was done. Like. But I remember how they were trying to build the Koons brand, and how they were trying to say, okay, we'll take care of you. We have dealerships in Missouri that do that as well. But there are a lot of people who, view auto dealers as this thing to avoid. And I think that's the big challenge, but it's also the big opportunity of the industry.
Yeah, that's good. Well, Jim, thanks so much for joining us on ASOTU CON Sessions by Effective, and we're just a little bit over an hour from hearing you just kind of address our industry, and can't wait to do that, and we'll share our story, but appreciate everything you're doing.
Yeah, it's going to be so much fun. Thanks, guys.